in the teaching of the principles of glory in the church, the message that I have been on for the last couple of weeks. And I told you that there were two phases in my mind of the work of the ministry of the church, and that's one is the work of the ministry of the church, and the two is the outreach of the church. In other words, taking the gospel to people who are outside of faith. And so as I began the teaching about evangelism, or taking the gospel to the world, I've told you that it has to be driven by compassion. That as a church, we see the destruction of somebody who's outside of faith. And so I told this little story to my congregation at Freedom Road Christian Ministry here in Tallahassee. It's simply this. I was coming back from Kentucky one Christmas. This is before my wife and I were married. I was with my roommate. But I was supposed to call my then fiance, who was in the hospital getting her wisdom teeth taken out. And so I had not done so in my mom and dad's house in Kentucky because they didn't want me to make the long distance phone call. And so I decided to go down to my brother's house a little bit further down in the state of Kentucky, right before you go into Tennessee. And his phone was out of commission. And we're sitting there looking out the window, and man, here come a blizzard. I'm talking about a blizzard. And I said to my roommate, I said, look, we got to go. So we jumped in the truck and we tried to outrun this thing. But it was too late. I mean, cars on both sides of the road had spun out. And we got to one part where there was a huge hill, like a mountain. And there was a tractor and trailer who was off the road on both sides of the road. There was just a narrow space in between us. We're going up that hill. My roommate said, don't stop. We just kept on going, made it through, got to Birmingham, Alabama. And there, as we're approaching the city of Birmingham, we come to a bridge. And there was a man standing in the middle of the bridge, in the middle of the road, and he was waving his arms fearfully. I mean, he was trying his very, very best to get our attention that we would stop the vehicle that we were driving, which was a pickup truck. And finally did come to a stop, and he told us, he said, black ice. And I looked up there on the bridge a little bit further down, and sure enough, there was his car smashed in the side of that bridge. And basically, it's a very good possibility that man saved me and my roommate's life. Because if we'd have kept going, and the tires on that old truck wasn't all that good anyway, we very possibly could have spun out and crashed right on through the railing of that bridge to our death. Desperate. The man was desperate to get our attention. And when I tell you that story, I want you to equate it to the call of God to the church, that we need to have that same intensity, desperate, when we realize that there are people on a path that will lead them to destruction. This is Pastor Jack King with the gospel on the radio broadcast.